Hey guys, how are things? So we're up in the woods today. I know you haven't seen me in a while, but I've been busy with a few things that you'll find out about next year. Anyhow, we've 3 knives here. These are the next 3 videos that we're going to be doing testing knives. Everybody seems to like a knife test. The one we're testing today is the Battlehorse knife. It's called the Dutchman. Okay, so anybody that watches my videos, you know I tend to favour a large fixed blade knife. It's what you need as a one tool option. Is a 4-inch knife useful? Of course it is. It's great. It's fantastic if you have it packed with a saw and a hatchet or a mid-sized axe. But if you're on your own and you have no other tool other than a knife, you want it to be a large, strong, fixed blade knife. And I reckon starting at about the 6-inch blade, between 6 and 8 inches, that seems to be the sweet spot between a large knife and still being able to do what a small knife can do. This knife, it's 01 tool steel. It's a 1/4 inch thick. It has a high grind on it. In the factory, I think it comes as a 0 grind, but I have changed it slightly, so it's kind of a saber stroke, it's secondary grind on it now. I reckon I've been using this a little bit, and I reckon it could have actually been almost a perfect survival knife if they had have given us some sort of exposed pommel here. I would like it a lot more if it had that. But I'm getting on fine with this knife. It's a very, very good knife. That's what we're testing today. The other 2 knives that we're going to be testing in the next few videos, one is this knife from a young German knife maker. It's called Haas Knives, okay, and it's a good knife. 4mm thick. It's a carbon steel. 90-degree spine here, and then from this point on I got them to round it. Okay, so firstly, when I'm battening, there's going to be less energy dissipated back to the batten. Okay, and secondly, if I'm using it as a draw knife, it's more comfortable to hold here. There's a convex grind on this. He put some primitive carvings in the walnut handle for me. This is still in the prototype stages, I suppose. What I do like about this, and I'm very fond of this, is that exposed pommel that you can hammer on. That's, in my mind, it's silly not to have that on a survival knife. The third knife is one made by an Irish knife maker, Andrew O'Mahony, a friend of mine. It's basically based around the Mac Graham primitive knife, but there's a few changes in it. One, it's a lot thicker. Okay, I think it's 5mm thick. It's 1095 steel. We have a sharp spine here, and yet again it's rounded off here. Okay, and I just like that principle, because when you're battening, you're getting more purchase on your batten. There's less energy coming back into your batten, and also when you're using it as a draw knife, it's more comfortable to use as a draw knife. Yet we have that scraping edge here for the first half of the knife. Andrew included that exposed pommel again, which I really like. But anyhow, back to the knife in hand today, which is the Battlehorse knife, and we're going to test that. So really, a huge part of a survival knife, other than working on the basis that it shouldn't break, should a survival knife break on you, you're really, really you know, in a bad situation. I've always said this: when your knife breaks on you, it has such a negative impact on your morale. So we have a very, very tough piece of wood here, and we're going to try and batten through this. Now, I don't imagine any problems with this knife, and like I said, I would say if this knife had an exposed pommel on it that you could hammer on, you can probably still hammer on the micarta, but I would prefer it if it had had an exposed pommel. So we give it a bit of a batten. Okay, I suppose this knife is very, very similar to an extra large, if you can imagine an extra large SE5. So it's going through that no problem at all. This wood, I've used this type of wood time and time again. I have a lot of it at home, and this is the wood that gave the Mac Graham Sequoia knife a really, really hard time. And as you can see, this is mouldering through this. Of course, 1/4 inch thick 01 tool steel. I wouldn't expect anything less of it. The 6 to 8 inch is what I like in a survival knife. I don't really like going beyond the 8 inches because I find then it can be proved to be a little bit more difficult prepping game and stuff like that. And that extra inch or two, it's, you know, you're not really getting a whole lot more out of it. Now we're hitting straight into a knot here, so we'll see how it fares out. And as we expected, it's just motoring through it, you know. You know, a lot of people say to me, if you were going on the Alone series, what knife would you take? Well, to be fair, if I was going on the Alone, I'd probably take something like a Genesis, an LT Wright Genesis, on the basis that, you know, you're going into a TV program like that with, I think it's 11 pieces of equipment, and 3 of those pieces of equipment is going to be, one is going to be a knife, the other is going to be an axe, and the other is going to be a saw. So it's a completely different scenario. What we're looking at here is an absolute one tool option, totally minimalist, and it's survival. So your knife has to be able to do so much more than just cut. You can see now it's really hard for this to bite in here. I don't actually know if it'll get in there. There's so many knots in it. But it's definitely a good test for this knife. And I like to over test my knives because I've always said there's a couple of things that will happen in a survival scenario. And I was only talking to a friend of mine, Gary, on the phone last week. How you doing, Gary? And I was saying that in a survival scenario, you no longer care about your 400, 500 or 600 euro knife. All you care about is getting a fire going. Your hands are freezing. You can't do this anymore, and you know you can't afford to get any colder. You want to get a fire going. And to be fair, if you had 10,000 euros, you'd probably use that to start a fire. And all your principles change, and your values change with that, you know. So I over test my knives, and then you know what they can or can't do. Also, in a survival scenario, a lot of people's fine motor skills break down and they become a lot rougher because they're not thinking stuff through as much. Now I just want to try a bit of carving on this. Like, this carves really, really well, for the simple reason it's got such a high, I think they call it a dandy grind. Now I have changed it slightly, there's a micro bevel on it, just I want to make it a little bit stronger, but it still carves very, very well, you know, for a 1/4 inch. It definitely carves a lot better than, say, an SE5, and you know, this is, to me, it's like an extra large SE5. Just feeling the edge there now after battening, there's no dings, or, yeah, it still feels good. 90 degrees fine. Now we're just making up feathers with it. Feathers fine. We're going to try now and see how it works with the ferro rod. Now it does have a 90 degrees spine, so we know it's not going to have any problem. And I always have my ferro rod here. It's connected to me on a key ring. On my ferro rod, then I also have a lighter wrapped in duct tape, which is a good emergency fire starter as well. And on the Light My Fires, which are my favourite ferro rod, they have a scraper, which I don't really use, but they do have a whistle inbuilt into them as well. So the whistle is, you know, a very, very useful device in a survival scenario. It's much better than shouting for help, and it'll always get more attention. So we'll give this a little scrape and see how it goes. So that's the knife. It's very comfortable in the hand. I couldn't fault the knife, other than I would just love to see, for a knife of this size, this girth, I would love to see, and strength, I would really love to see slightly exposed, even if it's only a slightly exposed pommel that you can hammer with. Now, I know you can hammer with the McCart and stuff like that, but I'm talking about for prolonged hammering where you might decide that you want to use your knife akin to a chisel, you know. So it has a lot of uses, and I just think it's a pity not to have that in a survival knife. Would I recommend this knife? Like, I mean, I haven't used it enough, but I can tell you one thing I know now. This knife, it's not going to break on you, okay? And the problem with 1/4 inch tool steel is usually it doesn't cut. And Battlehorse Knives have addressed this with this high dandy grind, as they call it. And like I said, I've put a slight secondary on it. You can see it carves fantastic. It makes feather sticks. It's big enough to do all your survival tasks, yet it's dexterous enough to make for making traps, bow drill sets. I had this about 20 minutes, and obviously I'd made a bow drill set with it. I really like it. It's very, very comfortable. It's like a comfortable SE5, even though it's that little bit bigger. It's actually much better than I thought it would have been. I could see it falling into one of my favourite knives just purely because of that build integrity. I just love strong, well-built knives, known full well what in my mindset is the most important thing in a survival knife is structural integrity. So I'll just give you a look at the other knives we're going to be testing. So this is the one that Andrew made for me. Now this is a convex grind, and we'll be probably testing either this or that one next. He did a great job on this. It's, you know, it's going to get beaten, and any knife that I have is in for a hard life. If it sticks with me, it's a good knife, because I don't abuse my knives, but I expect them to work. This knife, I think we could be onto something here with this. It is a convex grind as well. To be honest, the handle is too small for me. I have very, very large hands, and I know I haven't used this much, but I know I'm going to have difficulty holding on to that handle and stopping it of twisting and turning. But as you can see, it cuts just fine. So maybe we might be changing a few things on this knife before we reach what we're really happy with. I love the primitive look of it. Primitive is my thing. I like primitive looking knives, and that's definitely, you know, it's a pretty knife. Yet being primitive, this is primitive looking too, and I know this. I just know this is going to be a good knife. It has a very, very aggressive spine. This also, so I think it'll be an absolute screamer on a ferro rod. Yeah. So you can see that 90-degree spine there, and then when we move back here, it won't, because I purposely wanted that rounded for the use of a draw knife. So guys, we'll be back to you soon anyhow. It won't be another month before we're putting the video up. We've just been really, really busy doing stuff that we can't really talk about now, but that'll be all unveiled next year. Great to see you guys, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for dropping by.